Have you ever looked at your to-do list? Just this monument to impossible deadlines and endless tasks, and felt like the person who started this career is completely unrecognizable. We're talking about that deep exhaustion,
Yeah.
the kind that comes not just from being busy, but from running on empty because you've lost the original why.
Yeah, exactly. And it's more than burnout. It's really a loss of professional identity. Our source material points out that the meaning and the energy you crave didn't actually vanish. They just got buried, kind of obscured beneath layers of, well, transactional requirements. The professional self you once dreamed of being is still there. We just have to excavate it.
Right, and that's really our mission for this deep dive, isn't it? We're extracting a clear, sort of four-step framework. It's designed not necessarily to find you a new job, but to fundamentally reconnect you with the purpose and energy that made your work fulfilling in the first place.
And this is critical because regaining that professional vision isn't just a feel-good exercise. It's the engine of genuine long-term resilience. If you don't know why you're enduring the stress, well, it eventually wins.
Okay, so let's unpack this framework then. It seems to force four distinct shifts in how we see things. First, we had to look back at our foundational vision. Second, we perform a practical audit of our current energy levels. Third, we redefine what success even means. And finally, we leverage a sort of philosophical bedrock to build lasting resilience. So let's start at the beginning. The framework insists on looking backward to move forward. It demands that we revisit our original career vision. But, if I'm already focused on solving today's problems, why is it so vital to dig up those old values?
That's a fair question. It's because the distance between your current professional reality and your original intention, that's what creates that profound drain. Think of it this way. When you started out, you had core values, maybe contribution, creativity, perhaps mentorship. Over time, those values, they get divorced from the day-to-day work activities, and the job slowly morphs into what the sources call a value transaction gap.
A value transaction, yeah, okay.
Okay.
So, meaning I'm basically just trading my time for money
Right.
and ignoring the original emotional or intellectual capital I intended to invest.
Precisely. That transactional mindset means you're acting out of necessity, not alignment. We need to go back and ask, what was the deeper motivation for stepping into this field? What kind of professional contribution did you dream of making? That original value is the emotional hook. Say if you started in education because you valued shaping young minds, but now your week is like 90% budget reports. Well, that gap is screaming at you. When those foundational professional values get obscured by just the sheer volume of daily tasks and impossible deadlines, that's when the fuel tank runs dry.
Yeah, I think many people listening right now can probably identify with that feeling. Like being a professional historian whose job is now 90% Excel spreadsheets or something similar.
Yeah.
Okay, so once we dust off those, maybe abstract values, the next challenge is translating them into practical action right now. How do we spot the parts of the job that still provide fuel instead of continually draining the tank?
And this moves us into the second shift, the professional energy audit. The source material is very specific here. The explicit goal is identifying energizing aspects of your current work, distinguishing them from the merely necessary ones. You need a practical methodology for this, not just a vague feeling.
A practical methodology. Okay. What does that look like when my calendar's already packed? How can I justify spending time auditing my routine when I feel like I should just be executing?
Yeah, that pushback is valid, it really is. But the audit, it takes surprisingly little time and offers massive returns. The source suggests grading your key recurring activities like meetings, report writing, client interaction on an energy scale, say 1 to 5, and you do this immediately before and immediately after the task. This makes the data quantitative, you see.
So I track whether an activity, let's say leading the weekly budget reconciliation, started at a 3 maybe and ended at a 2.
Exactly, but here's the really high impact insight. You might find that a technically demanding task, maybe presenting a high stakes proposal, actually starts at a 3 and ends at a 4. Why? Because that task engages your original values. Maybe your love of synthesis or persuasion or complex problem solving. It's an energizer. Even though it adds weight to your schedule, it gives back more than it takes.
Okay. So we're looking for those moments where the work feels like us. It's recognizing the difference between the tasks that are required by the organization versus the activities that fulfill our own sort of personal professional contract.
That's it. It's the difference between doing what you must and doing what makes you feel competent and motivated. You might find that mentoring a junior team member while technically taking an hour out of your day gives you back 2 hours of renewed focus afterward. Why? Because it satisfies your foundational value of mentorship. The audit allows you to identify these energy injections and strategically double down on them. Even if you can't eliminate all the necessary draining tasks, you optimize around the energizers.
That makes perfect sense. Really practical. Okay, now let's tackle the third shift. This involves completely rethinking the metrics we use to judge our value. Everyone knows the traps of measuring success solely by task completion, that zero inbox treadmill, or by hours worked, which just celebrates exhaustion, really. Why is the source material so insistent that we must abandon these traditional measures?
Because they are the ultimate drivers of that value transaction cap we talked about earlier, they reinforce it. When the only victory is task completion, the work is literally never done. It leads to perpetual dissatisfaction. And when we prioritize hours, we confuse effort with impact. It's a common mistake. You can spend 12 miserable hours pushing papers, or maybe 6 highly aligned hours creating something truly impactful, which is better.
Right. And most corporate cultures, let's be honest, reward the person who stayed until 8 p.m., regardless of the impact.
That's the cultural hurdle, absolutely. The source insists that real professional success must be redefined by qualitative measures. We need to track contribution, meaning, and critically, alignment.
Okay, that sounds great in theory, but give me an example, like a qualitative metric the listener could actually track day to day.
Sure. Consider shifting from tracking, say, tickets closed to tracking impact per hour, or maybe an alignment score. Instead of focusing on the sheer volume of output, track the number of times your work led to a visible, positive organizational change, not just closing a loop. Or assess an alignment score. How many hours this week were spent on activities that directly supported your rediscovered original values? If you value innovation, for example, but spent only 5% of your time innovating, your success metric should reflect that misalignment. It should push you toward better activity selection next week.
I see. So success becomes less about checking boxes for others and more about achieving alignment for yourself. It's a move from external validation to internal fulfillment.
Precisely. It's a much more sustainable and, frankly, a more adult definition of professional value. It respects your inner world.
Okay, this is really coming together. If steps 1 through 3 gave us the diagnosis and the plan, rediscover values, find energy, redefine success, the source material points us to Dr. Viktor Frankl for the essential fuel, resilience. This connects everything, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And we must properly contextualize this philosophical powerhouse. Frankl, an Austrian psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, founded logotherapy. It centers on the idea that the primary motivational force in humans is the search for meaning. It's fundamental.
So it's taking an insight derived from, extreme suffering and applying it to the modern workplace grind, which sounds intense but maybe necessary.
That's the key synthesis, yes. Frankl's powerful insight that when you have a strong why, you can endure almost any how translates directly to professional resilience. He argued that suffering ceases to be suffering the moment it finds a meaning, a purpose.
So when a deadline is impossible or a client is difficult, it's still painful, sure. But if that difficulty serves a larger value-aligned purpose that you've identified, the drain is mitigated. Is that the idea?
Exactly right. When you redefine success around contribution and you reconnect with your original professional purpose, then the inevitable professional setbacks, the impossible deadline, the toxic colleague, the restructuring, they don't break you, not in the same way. They become challenges to overcome in service of your meaning, rather than just random, draining acts of cruelty imposed by the system. The source frames this as the ultimate payoff. Purpose creates an inherent resilience shield.
What makes this entire framework so powerful, it seems, is the insistence that these insights apply to finding purpose and resilience in any role. You don't have to quit and start a nonprofit, necessarily, to become the professional you dreamed of being. You just have to change the lens through which you see the work you already do.
That's a great way to put it. The location of the job, the title, the industry, these are secondary, really. The alignment of the role with your deep-seated professional values. That is what matters most. Whether you're a CEO, a software engineer, or managing a logistics team, this 4-step process is universally applicable because it's fundamentally about recalibrating your relationship with the work, not necessarily changing the work itself.
Wow, what a profound journey into these sources. Okay, to quickly synthesize this deep dive for you listening, we started by insisting you look backward to find your buried original career vision and values. Remember those. Then, we moved into the present, demanding a practical energy audit of your current routine to find those sources of fuel. Third, we challenged the old ways of thinking by redefining success metrics away from just hours and tasks, moving toward qualitative alignment and impact. And finally, we leveraged Dr. Frankl's insights to link that rediscovered purpose directly to lasting professional resilience.
Right. Now, for the final thought, we need to take Frankl's insight maybe one step further. If the greatest human motivation is the pursuit of meaning, as he said, and you've just rediscovered your authentic professional values through this process, consider this. Frankl noted that we are not defined by our circumstances, but by the attitude we choose toward them, our choice. So, given your current circumstances, what is the single, highest effort, most consequential decision you could make right now? Not the smallest step, but the biggest leap. What decision could you make to demonstrate a professional attitude fundamentally aligned with those newly rediscovered values?
The highest effort action, the one that proves you are truly serious about changing your professional narrative. That is the kind of challenge that leads to real transformation, isn't it?
Indeed. We've given you the comprehensive map and the philosophical fuel. Now it's time to choose the path of most resistance, which is often the path of most meaning.